Today we're digging into a pretty stark warning from the guy who basically invented modern AI, Geoffrey Hinton. And what he has to say? Well, it might just change how you see the future.
Train to be a plumber. Just let that sink in for a second. That's career advice from a Nobel Prize-winning computer scientist. Not learn to code, not be a data analyst, a plumber. This is from Geoffrey Hinton, the man everyone calls the godfather of AI. He's the one who shaped the tech that's now changing everything. So you have to ask, why on earth is he saying that?
To really get why he's so worried, first you need to understand what he actually built. For decades, Hinton was the biggest champion of a really controversial idea, an idea that's now the foundation for all modern AI.
So for the longest time, the world of AI was basically split into two camps. The main one, the big one, thought that intelligence was all about logic and symbols, kind of like a giant, powerful calculator. But Hinton, he had this other idea, inspired by our own brains. He was all in on something called artificial neural networks, trying to make computers learn the same way our brain cells connect and fire. And for 50 years, seriously, people thought he was on the fringe.
But guess what? His bet paid off. Big time. That fringe idea, it's now the engine that powers pretty much everything. All the Google models, ChatGPT, you name it. In fact, some of his best students, like Ilya Sutskever, are the guys who went on to found OpenAI. You could say his obsession literally created the AI revolution we're living through right now.
So he built it, he championed it for half a century, and he won. The story should end there, right? But it doesn't, because then something changed. And this is the real core of our story today. Why the man who built this technology started to become terrified of it.
After Google bought his company, Hinton spent a solid decade there, basically leading the charge. But then, pretty suddenly, in 2023, he quit. So why would the godfather of AI just walk away from a top job at Google, right at the peak of the revolution he started? He said it himself. He left so he could talk freely about how dangerous AI could be. I mean, that's a huge shift. The creator becomes the critic. The godfather of AI becomes its most famous and credible Cassandra, warning everyone about a future he helped bring about. So what was the turning point for him? The uh-oh moment? It happened when he saw a Google AI model explain why a joke was funny. He realized that's not just crunching data. To get a joke, to get the irony, the context, you have to actually understand things. And it was a sign of genuine, real understanding, happening way, way faster than even he thought was possible. That's when he realized we hadn't just made a clever tool. We had created a totally new kind of intelligence. He calls it digital intelligence. And here's why it's different. You and I, our brains are biological. They're mortal. But these AI models, they're digital. You can make 1,000 perfect copies of one. Each copy can go off and learn something different, and then bam, you merge all that knowledge together instantly. They learn collectively, and they never die. That gives them this massive, almost terrifying advantage over us. So, with this new, kind of scary understanding, Hinton now sees the danger breaking down into two main categories. There's the stuff that's happening right now, and then there's the stuff that's, well, existential. Okay, so first you have the short-term risks. This is basically bad people using AI to do bad things. And then second, you have the really big one. The long-term risk, the existential threat that comes from superintelligence itself. The risk that the AIs, not the humans, start calling the shots. And the immediate dangers? They're already here. Hinton points to things like cyber attacks, which are exploding because AI can write a phishing email that's impossible to spot. He's worried about someone using AI to cook up a cheap bioweapon, or a government using it to mess with elections through perfectly targeted propaganda. And then you've got lethal autonomous weapons, battle robots, which make the decision to go to war a whole lot easier. All right, so the obvious question is, why don't we just regulate this stuff? Well, here's the catch. In Europe, they've actually got some regulations, but there's a giant loophole. They specifically do not apply to military uses of AI. And here in the US, the big tech companies are lobbying hard against it, and they have a trump card they play every time. They argue that if we slow down, China won't, so we're kind of stuck. And that brings us to the second, much deeper risk. Hinton puts it, well, he puts it pretty bluntly with this quote. It's a shocking way to frame the question, But it gets to the heart of it. What happens when we aren't the smartest things on the planet anymore?
You know, people love to compare AI to the atomic bomb, but Hinton says that's the wrong analogy. The A-bomb had one job, and it was terrifyingly obvious. But AI, it has thousands of amazing beneficial uses in healthcare, science, you name it. And that's the trap. Because it's so useful, we will never stop developing it, which just makes the risk that much harder to control.
He has this other analogy that really hits home. Think of today's AI like a cute little tiger cub. It's amazing, it's fascinating to watch, and right now, we're in control. But we have to be 100% sure, absolutely sure, that when that cub grows up into a full-size tiger, it's not going to turn on us. Because if it does, we're done for.
So this all leads us to, well, a pretty uncertain future. What are the real-world consequences of all this? For our jobs and for humanity itself?
When he's pushed on it, Hinton gives this gut feeling, and it's frankly terrifying. He thinks there's maybe a 10 to 20% chance that AI could eventually decide to just wipe out humanity. He admits it's a guess, but for the godfather of AI to put the odds that high, that's chilling.
Now, the impact on jobs is way more immediate. Right now, AI is like an assistant that makes some workers super productive. But the next logical step is that it just replaces that mundane intellectual labor. Think paralegals, accountants, that kind of thing. Hinton figures superintelligence could be here in just 10 to 20 years, and the end game of that could be mass joblessness.
And this brings us right back to that plumber quote from the beginning. See, it makes sense now. It's not the manual labor jobs that are first on the chopping block. It's the desk jobs. Your ability to do something physical in the real world is, for now at least, a lot safer than a job that's just about moving information around on a screen.
But the problem is so much deeper than just losing a paycheck. You hear people talk about things like universal basic income to solve the money part, but Hinton's worried about something more human. For so many of us, our jobs give us a sense of purpose, a sense of dignity, of contributing. What happens to society when that's just gone?
Hinton's whole journey forces us to look at a really uncomfortable possibility, that we might be building our own successors. He's not trying to be dramatic. He's just saying we have to face this as a real possibility. And that leaves all of us with what might be the single most important question of our time. Can we figure out how to build these incredibly powerful things in a way that guarantees they will never, ever want to harm us? Because right now, nobody has the answer.